Today's virtual community event is getting the business to join the Agile journey. So this is a topic of particular interest for me, because when dealing with stakeholders in the business on Agile transformations, it's just always so key to bring them along. So I'm looking forward to this topic. Our panelists today will be the awesome Mike Geiler, the awesome Andrea Floyd, and myself, Quincy Jordan. So Mike is a consultant within our Innovate line of service within Agile Thought, and Andrea is a principal within our coaching practice within Innovate as well, and I am a director. So Agile Thought, just a quick blurb, we are spread across the Americas. So we are in 6 countries, founded in 2000, and we just went public this week too, by the way. So we have made up 3 different lines of services: Innovate, Build and Run. Innovate, where we have our strategic consulting; Build, where we have digital delivery; and Run, where we have our digital operations. All right, and so here I'm going to hand it over to Andrea Floyd.
Thanks, Quincy. So welcome. As Quincy has shared, we're hosting another Agile Thought Virtual Community. The inception came out of the pandemic, and when we were trying to find new and innovative ways to connect. So I'm grateful to have you guys join us and looking forward to our lively conversation. If we want to move on. Just want to walk us through what we can expect in terms of the flow of the conversation. Again, our topic is getting the business to join the Agile journey. We'll kick it off with understanding and having a conversation around how to get the business engaged, move into how to keep the business engaged, and then wrap it up with it's not just an IT thing, it's a we thing. So how do you shift the focus from just maybe an IT-centric Agile adoption? We're going to have an opportunity at the end of each of those sections to have 1 or 2 questions, but if you don't mind, we're going to hold the majority of our questions at the very end, so we can have a more holistic discussion. As you may have noticed, we're recording today's session so that it can be made available for others to listen in and learn, and hopefully get some new tips and tricks on how to engage the business. Next.
All right, thank you, Andrea. I am so hoping that I'm trying to see if by the time we get to it's not just an IT thing, that it's a we thing, that Andrea will actually say thing. Just want to see if that actually happens. All right. So how to get the business engaged. All right, so understanding why from the start is super critical, right? So when we're looking at getting the business engaged and how you start, engaging the business really, it sets the stage for successful outcomes. It allows them to know how to interact, how to really kind of gauge what's going to happen throughout the development process of that particular product. And it's also a really good time to establish how the business and IT, how the stakeholders, how everyone's going to work together. So you may not often find teamwork agreements that are established between business and IT or business and the product teams, but it's really good, to establish that type of agreement because it just makes everything really nice and transparent. It puts everything out in the open, and it allows for that opportunity for there to be explanation and collaboration on those areas that might be a little foggy or fuzzy, at the beginning. So it's really important to understand the why from the very beginning. And if you don't, that why is going to always be there. So whether you address it at the beginning or you address it later, it's still going to be there. It's just better to address it up front as much as possible. So one of the other things that, with regards to starting, is leadership education. All right, so there's any number of scenarios that I've been in with large-scale transformations, and you may or may not be surprised, but there's so many times when the leaders all have different definitions of what they think Agile is. They all have different definitions of, or different expectations of what they think the journey will look like. And so we find it very accommodating and very successful to acclimate the leadership thinking. And when we say acclimate the leadership thinking, we're saying that we're not trying to make them practitioners, but we're trying to give them the understanding of what the practitioners will do and how to interact with those practitioners. That is extremely important. And in that process, don't overcomplicate the simple. So, we're not trying to impress leadership with how technical we can be around the Agile space and, what velocity means and what volatility might mean, and, and so forth. We're not trying to impress with those things. So we really want to keep it nice and basic and simple, and really convey the point. And we also want to help leadership education by ensuring, or utilizing leadership education by ensuring that the messaging from leadership throughout the organization is consistent. So as I mentioned earlier, meaning the same thing when one says Agile, meaning the same thing when one says Scrum, meaning the same thing or understanding the purpose in velocity or things like that. Don't weaponize it. It's for the teams. It's, if you have that information, okay, no problem. But, again, don't weaponize it. All right. So before I continue, are there any questions? I may have time to take one question. All right. If there are any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the chat. So setting expectations, we are looking at really wanting to make sure that there is strategic alignment. Now, there are many different ways to accomplish strategic alignment. One of the ways that we at Agile Thought tend to favor are OKRs, and those are objectives and key results. And we tend to favor those because it's a really nice, simple, straightforward, not very complicated or complex way of ensuring that those who are at the team level can identify their daily work and how it contributes to a specific top line objective, business objective. And that is not only important for the team, but it's also important for the business, and it helps them to be able to see how the things are contributing to what matters to them the most, which are the business outcomes. All right, so we do have a question: how do you work with difficult leadership? All right, and that is actually, this is part of that. You set the expectations. So you set the expectations so that they are not guessing at what's coming. You help them to know how to identify success. So should you compare teams? One team is delivering X number of stories, another team is delivering another. Should they compare teams? And the answer is no. But they may not know why. So helping them to understand why, helping them to understand what a successful Agile environment looks like. All those things are really important. And then setting culture from the top and the side. And we say from the side because it's important that the other lateral areas within the organization also understand how to interact with Agile teams in an Agile environment and so forth. And then lastly, metrics to believe in. And we say metrics to believe in because there are a lot of different metrics out there, and you can't, quite frankly, you can't trust them all. Some can be gamed, and it's important to know which ones can be gamed and which ones are not as easy to be gamed. Almost any of them can be, you know, if that's what someone's trying to do. But it's important to know which metrics you can trust more than other metrics. So OKRs, which I mentioned before, is, you know, one of those. Then you also want to look at agility adoption, not only within the teams, but beyond the teams, you know, as well. So those are things that the business, you know, would have some interest in, the stakeholders would and should have some interest in, and as well as business agility and employee retention attrition ratio as well. All right, any questions before we move on, or any more questions? All right, so I am now going to hand it over to the awesome Mike Dialer.
Thanks, Quincy. Thank you very much. So that's sort of like the $64,000 question, right? Quincy's done an awesome job of setting up leadership, and we've talked it through, and everybody's excited. And so now we're going to start working in this new way. And then the rubber hits the road and everything feels, well, awkward and odd. It doesn't feel like we've always done what we've always done. So what do you do? And the simple answer to the question is focus on delivery. Through my experience is that once I've been able to get the business to experience a consistent flow of value being delivered to their customers, they're hooked. They'll never, ever want to go back to the old way of doing things. This is almost intoxicating. Consistent flow of business value is, well, the way the world's going. So you focus on that. And so the question becomes, so how do we get a consistent flow of value? The empirical process control. The empirical process control is based on 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency is the foundation. Without it, inspection is really difficult and adaptation is almost next to impossible. So you have to make transparency the foundation and make it real. Make sure everyone understands the goals, plans, progress, and opportunities in as close to real time as you possibly can. Once you've got transparency established, now the facts about your system become much more easily identifiable, and the context around those facts become infinitely more relevant. So with transparency and the facts gathered, now you can begin to make small incremental changes to vastly improve the chances of you achieving a continuous flow of business value. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're all looking for. So hopefully at this point, you're thinking, sounds pretty good, but I think we're going to need some help doing that because we haven't really talked about how to do that. So next slide, please, Quincy. So an excellent first step is forming an Agile transformation team. The Agile transformation team is a group of influential individuals from across your organization. So you should be thinking about like business, tech, the process organization, HR, marketing, literally could be coming from everywhere within your organization. There's a couple keys here. So the individuals need to be passionate about transforming your organization. And more importantly, they probably need to be really good at engaging and undertaking difficult tasks. Why? Because change is hard. And these individuals need to be willing to step up to that because it is a difficult thing to change an organization. They also need to be really good at articulating the goals and what you're going to achieve when you achieve your transformation goals. That will be key in helping the people that maybe don't get it from a 64,000 foot view, why you're going through this pain. A word of caution. Don't assume you can change your organization by leveraging the exact same process you've been doing that led you to the decision that you needed to change your organization. Can't begin to tell you the number of times that I've had the opportunity to work with a company that they're using their old process to change to a new process, and they're wondering, why isn't it working? Well, the same reason why that led you to want to change. So key point for the people that are hopefully going to volunteer for the Agile transformation team, they really have to have an Agile mindset and be willing to apply the empirical process control to your transformation. So now you're probably thinking, okay, so Agile mindset, we've got a few people certainly within the organization, but this feels like it needs to be bigger than just a few people. So what do we do? Next slide, please, Quincy. So a great place to start, communities of practice. So community of practice is a space where like-minded and like-skilled individuals can get together. They can make contacts. They can help each other grow. They can do knowledge sharing. It enables organizations to also disseminate information really quickly across a wide group of individuals. And it allows individuals to get together and start posing questions. You may have a problem within your area and it's new. You don't really know how to apply this Agile mindset to this problem. Well, you know what? In your community of practice, there's probably somebody that has seen this problem. And in the community of practice, you'll be able to raise your hand and go, hey, I've got a problem. What did you do? They'll be able to share ideas. Does that mean that idea is going to work for you? Maybe, maybe not. But at least you can kick around some ideas. You'll probably find 2 or 3 people that have the same problem. You can begin the knowledge share and really get the best of both worlds there and come up with some ideas on what you can do. The best COPs, in my opinion, are created by individuals and created by volunteers, and volunteers attend. The worst COPs out there, organizations make them mandatory. And what you end up finding is people show up because they're mandatory, but they tune out. So try to resist that. The Agile transformation team may have to start here and to save space and make rooms available for communities of practice. But over time, as they start to get running, what you would expect to see is the volunteers that are showing up will begin to raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to run this. And that's when you know your community of practice is really beginning to take hold. So pause here for a second or two and ask if there are any questions.
I was just going to share, I really am a fan of community of practices, and what I've, liked about some of the outcomes that we have achieved through this pandemic is I'm seeing more and more opportunities to participate in a virtual community of practice, which I sort of like as a customer. Maybe there's another community someplace else that I want to explore what they're talking about, because the more creative ideas I have access to, it's a great way. So I guess a little thought is to pitch it out there, that look online and don't just be constricted to your area where you live. Look broader than that. I know here in the Tampa Bay area, we have some very active Agile meetups.
One other thing I wanted to just jump in with as well is in a transformation, and when you're trying to achieve Agile adoption, utilize the community of practice to include the business. You can have a community of practice that focuses on, how do things seem like they're working from the business side of things in terms of interaction with the teams? What might resonate with them better? Because you may think, hey, we're conveying things on a consistent basis, but maybe it's not landing like you would like for it to. You can even have folks that are from the business to come in as guest speakers, as well, and just kind of share from their point of view what the Agile journey looks like for them. And from there, you can pivot, make some decisions, improve, do things just to make the Agile journey that much better for the entire organization.
Awesome. Thanks, Quincy. So some of you at this point might be thinking, or you've heard, hey, this agile transformation thing, that's just an IT thing, right? If IT transform, we're going to get all of these benefits that we've been talking about over the last 25 minutes or so. Well, not so much. And Andrea is going to help us answer the question of why that's not true.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so I'm going to use my sassy voice and say it is not just an IT thing. It is a we thing. And what do we mean by that? When we start to think about Agile, and those of us who are practitioners, we know that it helps us in any area of what we do, how our people that we work with. It's much broader than just, if you're used to thinking around it anchored on software development, it's so much broader than that. And it's about the enterprise. So as we go in and we look at the next slide, 2018 report from Gartner illuminates this. If we didn't already know it, and many of us do know it, we have data that supports there is shift happening. And what do we know about Agile? We inspect, we adapt, we pivot. And so what happened in the 80s is it was all about lean manufacturing, and that gave us such wins, and the adoption of those practices happened across different enterprises that you might not even think would be looking at lean techniques. It moved from manufacturing into just how you did your job. You started thinking about Six Sigma and lean practices outside of manufacturing. Well, that shift, all of a sudden in 2000, all of us are aware, Manifesto was born out of Snowbird, Utah by 16 creative, innovative software developers who were coming together to talk about how do we work differently? How can we create and imagine software in a different way and get different outcomes? And so that's when they sat down and they created the Agile Manifesto. Now, when you read the Agile Manifesto, it's very IT centric, the 12 principles behind it. And there's been some shifts and pivots to move away from just using that specific language. And so you have some different techniques that are coming out of that. So around 2017, Gartner started seeing indicators that now there's appetite for Agile practices, techniques, mindsets, the value of the culture that's used to create these great Agile outcomes. Well, appetite is now expansive. It's across the enterprise. And in 2017, 2018 timeframe, you started to see a big shift in organizations where leaders are saying, how can we start to adopt some of this good stuff in other areas of our enterprise? How can I come to the table? We've heard Quincy and Mike shared about how do you get the business engaged and how do you sustain it? Well, how their interest is the starting point to cascade this, to think more broadly, think more creatively of where can we take Agile and the benefits throughout the organization. So this is where we are at. This is the space that we're playing in. I know as Agile Thought consultants, we're engaged more and more at an enterprise level. We start maybe at the team level, maybe we move into then exploring scaled Agile, but we certainly do have a lot of clients who are coming to us outside of just IT, whether it's a financial area or auditing or compliance or anybody who wants to do and learn a different way of getting value. So after 2018 and the Gartner report, if we can go to the next slide, there's even more data, and I'm a data kind of gal. So in the in the most recent report that was created in July of this year, the State of Agile report had some key indicators that I pulled out that I thought sort of reinforce what we're talking about here, pulling the business in and making it broader than just an IT, thinking of it more enterprise-wide. So in that report, there were 2/3 of the respondents that came to the table, and they said, in addition to management priorities, they found alignment between the business and technology is one of the strongest positive impacts of organizational adopting Agile. So people who are actually living and breathing, the majority saw this as a great improvement. It was once people got exposure, just like we saw in manufacturing, the the adoption of lean and how that then spirited off from the Gartner report, we see that when people start to see people having success and achieving great outcomes, there's interest. And so this is definitely an indicator that we're now thinking of agile journeys and transformations across the enterprise. The next indicator I thought was interesting was when you look, they were looking at the barriers to our agile adoptions. And again, many of us who are practitioners probably have our own opinions, but these resonated with me. And out of this, I think we talk about this being a new way of working, a new way of doing. And this in the center item there, it says general organizational resistance to change. That the people who responded, 46% felt that this was a common barrier to adoption. With this learning, I think it's about understanding that change is hard, and that in order to sustain change, you have to pay attention. You have to read the people who are participating. You have to look for measures beyond just basic measures to see, are we getting the value from this change that we thought? Do we need to look at making some adjustments? Going back to the empirical control process control that Mike mentioned, having those moments of reflection, those moments of looking and making pivots based on how are people responding to this change. You know, maybe if you're undergoing an agile journey, you take that moment to step back and say, we're going too fast, or we need to go put some more focus in our communication. People aren't understanding the what and the why and what's in it for them. So we need to perk up that communication and show them through practical experience how this can make their lives different. When you're talking about pulling people in outside of IT into agile transformations, getting in their mindset, getting into what problems they're trying to solve, and helping them to really see how can this apply to them? How can this help them? Again, I go back to what's in it for me. So that's an important thing to be aware of, is always doing those moments of reflection and then putting some effort behind increasing understanding and I'm going to say desire. And then the other thing that called out to me in this particular study was around value stream mapping. And this has become very, very popular. 55% of the respondents said that they're using value stream mapping. And that's really where you take a look at that flow from idea to value. So what does that look like? You know, you want to look at what you're doing today. You have to take a look at what you're doing today so you can come up with creative ideas and opportunities of where you want to make some changes to shorten that flow, to increase those incremental pieces of value you're getting out into the organization. And again, value stream mapping looks at the entire enterprise. It's not just about IT. So if you don't understand it from idea to the hands of your customers, you're not getting the full breadth of space that you have an opportunity to make an impact in. And everything that underlines business agility is about the importance of creating that agile culture and mindset. And that doesn't happen without attention and effort. And so this is where the business leaders that we were telling you how to engage become critical stakeholders and active participants in your agile journey across your enterprise. We need them to understand it so that they can walk the talk. They can highlight our successes. They can support us as we go through our learnings. So this was a great data source for me to reinforce that it truly is a shift. We're seeing more and more about business agility rather than just IT agility. Next. I like the heading here. Business agility is a holistic approach. Everybody's trying to get on the bandwagon around digital transformation. To stay relevant, you need to understand what's going on in the marketplace with your competitors. And in order to be relevant, you have to make sure you're getting value out as quickly as possible and you understand what that is. I'm getting a little seasick with the slides going back and forth. But here, what I'm trying to say on this particular slide, and there's a lot of data here because it's all good stuff. It's communicating several things. It's telling you.
I don't know why it keeps flipping back and forth.
My hands are not on the keyboard, people.
Now he's just toying with you, Andrea.
Well, this is an Agile Thought artifact, and we use it to help show individuals, teams, clients, business partners where there's opportunities to make impact. And you can see it can touch any place in your enterprise. It can touch any place in your organization. It's not just about software delivery. And what we know as Agile Thought, or Agile thinkers, as we call ourselves, you have to meet people where they're at. You have to meet organizations where they're at. And so you need to pick and choose what's the best approach for crafting how you're going to start accelerating or adopting Agile, and where can you gain the most value within your organization. No two organizations are the same. No two people are the same. So it's about finding those things that will work best in your environment, with your people, with your customers, with your leaders. So there's many ways to start your journey, and there's many, many ways to expand it. But at the heart of it, it's a holistic approach. If you really want to, even if you still are anchored on it's an IT thing, well, you always have to have the business part of that conversation too. So without their fingerprints, ideas, innovations, information, we don't build products that our customers are going to want. So regardless, if you start there, that's a fine place to start, but where do you go next? So I like this to just give us a glimpse of so many different ways to start to make an impact. And you don't have to do everything all at once. You can do aspects of these opportunities where it makes sense, when it makes sense. Looking on past this, really in summary, it's about the enterprise. It's about thinking about what's important for our people, what new ways of working can we help them to get more joy out of what they're doing, to be successful, and then where are those opportunities for us as an organization to start to realize that value sooner, so our customers are delighted and we're able to compete more, effectively, I guess, against others in our same environment or markets. But it's a journey. A journey it's not about the destination. It's about where you go along the way, the experiences you have, the people you touch, the advocates you can grow. I mean, definitely when you think of an Agile transformation team, there's a team today that doesn't have to be the team tomorrow. And what I've seen and what I love about Agile transformation teams, and Mike shared, you're looking for those advocates, those people with a little, jazz, a little, oomph in their step, because you're going to create that energy that's going to build. But then you want to release them into the wild, and you want to pull some other people in as you're part of your champions, right? And create that, you just continue to add to and expand out from. And, I don't know about you guys, but I know I'm not sure if I'm communicating. I can get excited, and I can, when I see something working for somebody else and somebody else having a great outcome from different things that they're doing, I want to know more about it. So the more that I can get that energy going and get that understanding from the top to the bottom and across the entire enterprise, the better that journey is going to be. And here at Agile Thought, we also say something about nail it before you scale it. So start wisely. Don't try to go to the big bang. Set a roadmap. Assess where our biggest needs are. Some of these activities, like doing a value stream mapping, I love to do that with as a first part of just exploring where to go, because it really helps people in all areas of the business understand and see maybe aha moments that they've missed before. Where are those opportunities? And if you can get them to help you, or identify that, then they become part of the community that wants to solve the problems, to find innovative ways. Every journey needs an environment that enables success and creates that space for that success. So this is where leaders come to the table. This is where every person who's part of the change needs to be working towards creating an environment that rewards and invites innovation and learning and makes it safe to do that. Because the one thing I know is Murphy's always visited everything I've ever done, and things will change. That's the one constant thing I know. And I'm always learning. I think pivot, I'm going to go get a t-shirt because I'm constantly pivoting and I'm working with clients through that. And it's joyful when people react to that in a way that goes, you know what? There's some good here. We learned something. Let's take that, apply that. Let's make a shift. So it's the importance of the culture and the mindset cannot be underrated. In order for Agile to be successful in the enterprise or at all, it needs to have that environment where it's supported and it can flourish. So start your journey wherever it is, even if it's at a team level, but just always know it's about people. It starts with people. You know, we always try to put customer-centric thinking in our mind as we think about our products and services. Well, without the wonderful people that you work with, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get anything into anybody's hands. So understand that people are complex and we need to help them through change. So emotional quotient, you know, being high on your EI is going to help everybody. And if you're an advocate, a champion, that would be a quality I would hope I would see in you. So again, it's not just an IT thing. It can go and grow any place. It can start there. It doesn't have to end there. Well, I was going to leave some time for questions, which you have plenty of time for questions, but I was going to open it up for questions in general on just to hear what you have to say. Any thoughts, any experiences any of you have had? What's worked for you? What challenges have you seen?
Or do you have other ways of engaging the business and bringing them along on the Agile journey that we didn't cover? We're always open to learn.
This is Rosemary. What has worked for me, and I think you also mentioned that, is you always have to, first of all, believe that you're not going to totally plant the seed of Agile, but, you know, you have to do it, you know, gradually. So even if you plant the seed, someone else can water it. Because I remember my last project, it was a government project, and it was quite a difficult team, starting from the team size, which was like 25. I had never seen a team size like that. And it took time for them to, first of all, you know, agree for me to split the team into two to make it more productive, because we're having very long daily scrum, which, you know, most of the time everyone was just all over the place. So we accomplished that, and then gradually went to implement all the scrum ceremonies. All started. They had never done retrospective, and for some reason management was scared of it. So the first retrospective, everyone wanted to be there. So it was really scary, because they were like, we just want to know what is going to be discussed. And we had to really make them understand it's for the team's empowerment and it's not a gossip place. And, you know, and we accomplished that with my team. So what I'm just trying to share is it's a gradual process, and sometimes it can be very challenging, very frustrating, but you have to still be assertive and just stay the course and do it diligently but consistently until you're able to accomplish one thing, and then you go to the next, especially when you go to an environment that can be a little bit challenging. So that's just what I wanted to share.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. You know, in particular, that sometimes you're part of the journey, but you may not be there for the entire journey. You may not see that. Even for us as consultants, you know, sometimes we can't be there for the entire journey. We would like to be, but sometimes we can't. And I personally, when I disengage from a client, I like to actually reach out, especially if we got to what I thought was a pretty, stable point. I actually like to reach out about a year later and just say, hey, how are things going? Like, did it completely fall apart 90 days after I left? Or were you able to maintain as we, had hoped and anticipated? And most of the time it has been maintained, but there have been sometimes that it wasn't. It's not always perfect. Well, there's changeover within the organization where they change staff, and and a lot of different things happen. But it's such a good point that you made, Rosemary, that you're not necessarily along for the entire journey, and you're planting that seed. So I thought that was a really good point. Did anyone else have any questions or suggestions or comments?
And then celebrating every milestone as well, no matter how small, just to make the team feel worthy of whatever they've accomplished, celebrate it like it was a very big deal. And that gives them the energy to move to the next level, whether it's in showing results of what happened. I remember I had to show my team, their velocity chart, their sprint health, to understand exactly where they came from, with a velocity chart that was always looking the other way, not being able to accomplish anything during a sprint, to actually taking just enough stories that was sustainable, and the team was also happy, so they could actually measure it against something that was empirical. So celebrating milestones is, I think, it's another great way of keeping agile teams, encouraged and motivated.
Yes, and it's a really good way to involve the business with that too, so that they can see that iterative and incremental, progress happening, and it also helps them to shape and mold what their expectations are. So they begin to see, oh, we're not going to get the big thing in 6 months. We're actually getting it a little bit at a time, but we're also able to give that feedback too, which usually once they get it and they see that's what's happening, it's very refreshing for them.
I did mean to throw a plug out, and I don't know if you have your book handy, but when I think about business agility, one of my go-to books that I often cite or refer people to is The Age of Agile by Stephen Dunning. So there it is. It's yellow, bright yellow.
So if I put it close enough to my face, I think it kind of catches it.
There you go, right there. Okay, so anyway, I plugged, and mine is holding up my camera, so you're not looking at it under my chin. It's right there.
Any other questions, suggestions, anything you want to share, experiences? And it doesn't always have to be a good experience. It can be a learning experience, I like to say.
So yesterday I was talking with Andrea that I had this experience in my last work where I really tried to push Agile into the leadership and into the whole organization, and that didn't work. So one thing that I suggest is not trying to push it really hard, but instead trying to understand the why, as you mentioned, Quincy, in the beginning of the call. Try to get the quick wins, right? It doesn't have to be a really big one with a lot of risk. It could be something really small with a quick win, and gain confidence from the leadership and other people that is involved in this transformation. So what I did is, after failing several times with the leadership and the organization, I asked the team in a really small project, it wasn't really a high value project or anything, try to go with a Scrum team. And we actually accomplished a lot of great things. It wasn't perfect, but we did things better than other teams. When leadership saw that, they mentioned, hey, we want to have this in the whole organization because this was a success, even though it wasn't like a real big success, right? And yeah, I think that's what my experience was with this agile transformation in this particular organization, with tough leadership that didn't want to be agile or anything, right? So yeah, quick wins and celebrate the quick wins as Rosemary mentioned, and doesn't have to be a really big one, just small win.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hector. Yeah, there are a few things that will build trust with the business, like delivering on what the team says they're going to deliver on. That builds trust like no one's business, you know? So that's, yes, that is the thing that will do it for sure. All right, well, if we don't have any more questions or any other comments, and if we do, that's fine, we still have a few minutes. But if we do not, then what's coming up? September 30th, we have Succeeding with Culturally Diverse Teams. So that will be our next AT Virtual Community event. Again, on September 30th, should be at the same time, I believe 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And all of our events are recorded. So you can always go to our website and check the library of, I believe it's called online webinars on there. And you can go back and look at some of the previous ones, and for anyone who may have missed us today, or if there's someone that you would like to get this to, you can always go to our website and find it there. In addition to that, I should also mention that we do have 2 recs out there for what we call team agility coaches, or I think it's out there as a Scrum Master. So that is a position that we're actively looking to hire for, as well as enterprise agile coaches as well. So those are 2, what do they call them? Shameless plugs that I want to put out there about that we're looking to grow our team, actively doing so. And lastly, or next to last, if you would like to connect with any of our panelists, you can actually use your LinkedIn app if you want to connect on LinkedIn, and you can use the QR code that you actually see on the screen, and it's just an easy way to connect with us. We always look forward to connecting with other Agilists. We like sharing, we like discussing, we like doing the things that we believe are going to help sharpen each other. So even if you don't work at Agile Thought, that's great. We like to sharpen each other and just help the overall Agile community, as much as possible. All right. Well, we will end there. Oh, Boy, looks like you're trying to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one quick thing. As far as we wrap up, I know that being a new employee here at Agile Thought, incorporating myself into a new culture, that's always a challenge for some people. But I guess recognizing that, seeing the limitless potential that is here, and a lot of talented people that I've been able to interact with thus far, but also holding yourself accountable. One of the big steps within any type of journey is having self-awareness, identifying your emotional intelligence associated with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of research that is necessary to have an understanding of what to do next. And that kind of falls into the interpretation of those Agile values within the Agile Manifesto and the 12 Agile principles. But taking on the challenge of interpreting those documents and self-assessing, are we actually moving the needle? Are we actually holding to those values, those principles, and taking the steps on identifying if we are not, why, or what can we do to improve ourselves to go to the next step, right? So taking that challenge of recognizing where we are and where we intend on going, and placing that challenge on it, each one here's doorstep, because I anticipate that everyone is interested, everyone is passionate, and definitely are walking in that direction. That was my comments. I know I went another way that she wasn't expecting, but that's what I thought.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Bowie. Yeah, self-assessment that leads to self-improvement. That's a beautiful thing. So thank you. All right, well, we will stop there. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope this was very valuable to you. And if there's something that you would like for us to improve, or if you have suggestions, you could always reach out to any of us, myself, Mike, Andrea, and we could possibly incorporate that topic into a future event. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.